What is up, guys? Archon today, we're bringing you guys another YouTube video. Last video, I covered the Apex Legends trailer for Horizon and the new map Olympus. This is going to be the patch notes. I thought we were going to be playing the new patch a little bit earlier. I thought it was coming out around 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern for some reason. I don't know why. I noticed after I read back that it was 8 p.m. PT, which is Pacific time. So that means here on the East Coast, I won't be getting the patch until 11 p.m. And from what I understand, they've chalked it up to a bunch of things. They chalked it up to basically it being that they didn't want to overload the servers with the new season, with all the hype coming with the new map and with the new legend coming out. So it got moved to 11 p.m. here on the East Coast. I'm sorry, everybody on the East Coast. You guys are just going to have to wait an extra day. They pretty much should have just said that on the other coast it was going to be November 5th, essentially, for the release. Because realistically, that's kind of what it's going to be after downloading the patch. You're probably going to be at around midnight. So, feel kind of bad for everybody on the East Coast, but hey, you Pacific Coast players, you guys get to play it at 8 p.m. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the patch notes here and breakdown. So, we already talked about Horizon, we already talked about her spacesuit, her gravity flow, and all that, so we're not going to talk about that. The new map of Olympus, this is the overview of the map, it looks like, or the conceptual art for it. I talked about it a little bit in the video, of what we could see when they were running around. It definitely looks pretty cool. You also have vehicles being added to Apex. And from what I think it says here, the Trident interacts with the legend abilities in many different ways. So it looks like you can probably throw down a Gibraltar shield on it, maybe, if you wanted to protect yourself. There'd be some pretty crazy things you can do. I'm trying to think of like other ideas. Probably can't use an Octane bounce pad with it. That would be really awkward. Just like launch yourself in a vehicle just completely off the map or something. It looks like it's going to have the ability to, let's see, drive in third person or ride as a passenger in first person with full shooting capabilities. So yes, it is going to shoot. This is going to be interesting because this is the first vehicle to be able to shoot with Apex. I won't say it's the first vehicle because you could ride trains in the past. You couldn't control them necessarily outside of being able to stop them at train stops. But this is like a full-blown first-person vehicle with shooting capabilities. So we'll have to see how balanced it is. Trident is durable, so it will never explode, but damage applied from the enemy fire will be dispersed amongst players in the car. Don't worry, you can still do full damage to players by hitting them directly. So that's very interesting. Basically, everybody in the vehicle is going to be hit by it if they're in the car, so if you arc star it, it's going to be evenly split amongst all the players, is what I'm guessing. So I think an arc star is what, like 90 damage, right? Or it's 90 for the explosion, I think it's like 50 for the stick. Something close to that. So, it'll still do a lot of damage. Grenades are going to be pretty good. Olympus Preview. Without getting fear of getting shot, we're introducing a new playlist called Olympus Preview. This mode teams you up with 30 legends on Olympus and allows you to roam the map to learn the map and routes to the circle. Circles are still on, and once Circle 4 finishes, players are brought back up to the plane to start the second skydive run. There are a total of 3 runs before the match ends. This mode is only available for 1 week. So, for those of you who are worried about having any issues with, you know, the new map, being able to learn it on the fly for both quick play and ranked, and you have anxiety about that, don't worry, you're going to have a limited time mode where you're just going to be able to preview the map, go around all the loot zones. Eventually the circles will all close. You'll get to see kind of where the circles are going to close, so you can use it for information there, so you can kind of get a tell of where a circle is going to end. And then you just go back up and you do it like 3 times, so you get to see 3 different locations, or 3 different circle locations, as well as loot zones. Clubs is another thing that's being added. It kind of reminds me from what it looks like as regiments from Call of Duty. I don't know if there's going to be any like multipliers for XP or anything like that, but you'll be able to see like who's online. If you play with somebody who's really good and you don't want to add them to your friends list, you can add them to clubs instead, so you only know when they're online in this particular game. Doesn't look like you can type anything into the club box at all. I guess there is announcements, so I don't know how all that works. It's just the HUD for it. Be interesting to see. You can tell whether or not they're on PlayStation or if they're on like another console or whatever you're playing. You can tell the difference. You can also go look for particular clubs as well that you want to join. Apex is coming to Steam, it looks like, so there's going to be a limited time thing where if you download Steam, you get these 3 keychains or weapon charms or whatever. The Battle Pass, these are the 2 skins for the Battle Pass. Doesn't really interest me personally. Another Wraith and Octane skin, for those wondering. They're reworking challenges as well to where looks like these 7s. Okay, no. Challenges are no longer points-based. They are now generated between 1 to 5 stars. Depending on their difficulty, collecting 10 stars will take you to the next Battle Pass. We've also added tabs to the challenges menu in the lobby to allow you to toggle between daily, top, weekly, and event challenges. within a match. Players can open the map and see the same widget in game. You can actually see your challenges in game, which is nice in case you forget where you have to drop. You like see it. You're like, hey, I gotta go here. For whatever reason you guys don't play for like 5 minutes and you forget where you had to go, you can now open up your map and you'll see your widget there that tells you, hey, you gotta go here. So it's a nice little change, a nice little quality of life change for people who like to do challenges for the battle pass. It is kind of interesting how the star system works. So we'll have to see like how people like the star system. I think by points it means that you won't get points and stars. You'll just get flat stars. Because there was a time, because from what I remember, there was a time where you actually did get stars as well. I'm trying to remember. Like it was both stars and points. Sorry guys, trying to get through a lot here. We haven't even gotten to the patch notes yet. But I wanted people to understand that this isn't the numbers that they're talking about. This is what they're talking about. Quality of life updates, attachment swap improvements. So basically when replacing an attachment on your gun, if you have, let's say, a blue and you come across a purple, and your blue can actually be an upgrade for your other gun, when you swap to the purple on your primary, it'll swap the blue out to your secondary. So you don't have to go and swap the gun again and pick it up, which is really nice. This needed to be a thing a long time ago. Replicator updates. For Season 7, we've removed weapons from the crafting pool and have replaced them with shield batteries. So it looks like you're going to be able to get both medkits and shield batteries from the Replicator, which is actually going to be an interesting take on the game. I have looked at the patch notes, and I say this is interesting, and you'll see why down below once we get to it. But keep an eye on this one. This one's going to be something to remember. We now prevent other players from picking up items that you crafted for the first 5 seconds of crafting. This can be cancelled by pinging the item. This was a problem for sure. I can't remember how many times like I would craft something like a backpack or something, and some dude would just walk up and snag it while I was making something else in like the other section, and he was just standing there not doing anything or looting, and he comes over, hey, sees purple backpack, that's mine, I'm gone. So annoying in ranked for people to troll you like that. Glad to see that's gone. Airdrop Clarity. The colors of the beams have been changed to differentiate between normal airdrops, lifeline airdrops, and replicator airdrops. Normal drops are late tan. So this means if you see a late tan light coming from the drop, that means that it's a normal drop from the map. Lifelines are blue, so they'll retain the original blue that you see all the time. And replicator drops are teal. So that means if it's a replicator and not a package at all, it'll be teal. All of the airdrop landing area effects while it's coming down match their colors. I have no idea what that means. I guess when it lands, it'll be teal area effects. Okay, never mind. I thought it said sound effect, which would have been really confusing. Yeah, never mind, makes sense. Airdrop's beams still stay visible when close to the airdrop instead of fading when you get close. The beam still disappears when the pod is open. So I actually had trouble with this for a while where I would get close to like the drop or the package, like it'd be over a hill or something, and I would no longer see the beam anymore because you'd be too close to it. It would just disappear. And then it would be very confusing as to where the item was or where the box was. It happened very rarely, but there were a few times where I just couldn't find the care package and I just gave up. I couldn't tell where exactly it landed. A lot less frequent now that you know where everything lands. Miscellaneous. The Arc Star Shadow now appears as an Arc Star model once it was thrown near you instead of a grenade. That's a very, very important change. Added a new voice line when you're using a Phoenix kit. Very good, very nice change for sure. So you know when your ally is using a Phoenix kit, not just a shield battery or a med kit. Listening to healing up, and then you think that they're using like a shield battery or using a med kit. And you look and they're actually sitting there using a Phoenix kit, and they're going to be, immobile for an extra like 3-4 seconds. Added a new voice line when you drop a hollow spray. Doesn't matter. You can now ping ammo in your inventory to request more from your squad. This is really nice. Made modifications to the ring to reduce the amount of unplayable space in the circle. If this is accurate, this is amazing. Because I can't count how many times there's been a ring where it's literally, you have the circle, right? And only the center of the ring is playable. Everything outside of that that's supposed to be playable is either untraversable terrain or inaccessible. So, great change. Hopefully it amounts to something in both Olympus and World's End. There's a reason I'm not mentioning King's Canyon, and we're getting to it right now. For 2 weeks, Olympus will be the only map you can play on. After that week, we go into a normal rotation between Olympus and World's Edge. We'll be vaulting King's Canyon for the time being. So, like I mentioned in the Horizon video, they thought they were going to have the new map out before season 7 here. What happened instead is they weren't able to get it out, so I think that's why King's Canyon came back and was a rotational split with World's Edge. That's my personal thought on it, not fact or anything, so don't write in the comment section, that's not true, that's not this and that. Like, that's just my thoughts on it. Season 7 ranked rotation. The first half of ranked split will be played on Olympus. The second half of ranked will be played on World's Edge. For more information on the season's ranked updates, check out the ranked blog here. We're not going to do that. On to what we actually came to see. The meat to the bones of the patch. Legend meta, Bangalore. Rolling Thunder. Reduce the time it takes for explosions from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. That's actually very huge. There are a lot of times where you're able to actually just chill in her ult for a second. 3 to 4 seconds, get your bearings, and then choose to move. Not to mention that each missile, like, it's based on when the missile lands, so they don't all detonate at the same time. It's a rolling detonation. So you're actually able to time it to where, you know, you can actually sit in a missile field for, let's say, 9 to 10 seconds while the other missiles are detonating, and you're able to just use that last row of missiles to get out, and then it creates a smoke screen, and you can't really see where they went. They're going to have to be a little quicker about that, which is amazing for Bangalore. Her ult, if done correctly and lands on top of people correctly, it deals a lot of damage. I think it's almost more than what Gibraltar deals currently, just because his ult is more consistent with his missiles coming down. They don't seem to have the same hit that they used to since they reworked it to be shorter. I'm not sure why, but there's been countless times where I'll throw that ult down and Gibraltar's ult will just get no damage, or it'll get maybe like one hit on somebody who's standing in the center of it. It's like, oh, okay. You're just immune to explosions. Gotcha. This is a big buff to Bangalore, especially with Horizon coming into the game and having Black Hole to pull people out of cover. You could easily use like Black Hole and the missiles. You could even throw like Bangalore smoke on them and then throw the canister on them if you really wanted to disorient them, so that they couldn't see where the missiles are landing necessarily or how far out they're going. There's a lot of combo potential here. Horizon and Caustic also have some pretty good combo potential as well. Okay, so let's talk about this. Noxus Gas Trap and Noxus Gas Grenade. Legends no longer get a blurred vision effect while in gas. Damage updated from 4 to 10 ticks of damage to 6 to 12 ticks of damage. Fighting in Caustic Gas is one of the most frustrating things in Apex Legends, and yet we need the gas to represent a meaningful threat or enemies will just ignore it, and that's very true. With this change, we're attacking what we think is the greatest contributor to this frustration, the fact that your vision is blurred while you're in the gas. This made it extremely hard to fight back. To make up for lost power, we're upping the damage from the gas a bit. I think this is a big change against Caustic. I guess the gas probably still slows you a little bit while you're in it, and that's the important thing. Not too sure what it's gonna look like without the blurred vision. I guess it maybe looks like a Bangalore smoke where you're running around but you're kind of slowed. I don't know how I feel about this change, honestly. I do feel like it obviously is a nerf because having that disoriented vision was part of it, but this also means that your teammates no longer have any drawbacks to being in your gas because their vision no longer gets blurred either, as far as I can understand here. So it's a buff and a nerf, in a way. Your teammates can run into your gas now and go fight freely, but at the same time, they're going to be able to be seen and be shot at while the enemy is taking damage. I think the reason that this came is because Horizon and his ult may be a really strong combination as well, like I talked about with Horizon and Bangalore. Horizon and Caustic is probably that much better, honestly, because it keeps them tethered to the gas cloud, and it would be miserable trying to, you know, fight through both the Horizon black hole that's eating the entirety of your screen, and then also be vision blurred by the gas while you're also trying to fight the blur. So, very interesting. Mirage, Psych Out, Life of the Party. Decoys now have 45 health. This is a big buff to him. So let's read the dev note and then I'll give my take on it. So our Bamboozler in Chief is a hard legend to keep relevant. Every time we make a change to decoys, there is a clear uptick in usage and power as Mirage mains learn to use their new tools. And then as the rest of the world catches on and starts being able to tell the real Mirage from his equally handsome holograms, that uptake disappears. This time around, we want to try and make it a little bit harder to clear out decoys. We're giving them health, but to make it very clear up front, they will not work as a shield. While they would take damage from bullets, the bullet also passes through them and hits whatever's behind them. That's what we call the hallway test. You should not be able to win an engagement against an enemy in a straight coverless hallway by snapcasting a decoy and having said decoy eat an entire wingman shot. Decoys will also play unique hit effects and briefly flicker out of existence when taking damage to help you differentiate between them and the real Mirage. This is very interesting. I like the idea and I like the change of giving them health so that if they're being sniped at maybe, the person sniping at them will see that they got a hit and they'll think, hey, I hit him and if you like slid behind a wall as the decoy was getting hit, they'll think that they hit you. In reality, they didn't. They hit the decoy. One giveaway is if snipers don't actually overhit the 45 threshold, and I've talked about this in other videos where a weapon in most cases can't go over the player's HP that they currently have, which is why when you're shooting target dummies, you get some weird inaccurate readings for like shotguns. Like if you shotgun a dummy at point blank range the first time, depending on what it is, you'll get like 120 damage, let's say for the Mastiff, you get 120. So that breaks his shields and deals 20 damage to his health, so he'll only have 80 left. Next time you shoot him with the shotgun, you get another 80 instead of 120, because it can't deal more damage than what's there, because the pellets have to hit up to a certain point, and then once that threshold's met, the rest of the pellets just don't hit. I do believe snipers are different in this regard, where they always deal their full damage up front, so this should work against snipers pretty effectively. Especially like with his ultimate up close. Like not saying you're gonna snipe up close, but I mean like up close it's gonna work in gunfights where people are gonna shoot them and they're gonna all go blinky blinky everywhere, and it's gonna be so hard to keep an eye on the original Mirage, because you're gonna be looking for the sound of, or you're gonna be looking for the visual effect where the Mirage blinks out for a second then fades back in. So you're gonna be looking for that, and you're gonna be trying to find him. I do like how they're not making him a shield. I think that is fair and balanced. So this means you do not want to run directly behind. You're trying to like bum rush somebody, you want to run next to if you can. Definitely not behind, because if you run behind, you're going to get hit and the dummy's going to get hit and the dummy's going to disappear, and you're going to be missing HP from all the shots the dummy ate. I think that's fair and balanced, or the hologram ate. So, Mirage change, definitely don't sleep on it. I think it's going to be pretty good. Octane, Swiftmen, double healing rate from 0.5 HPS to 1 heals per second. So basically what the dev note's saying is that they don't want to overbuff Octane. They feel like it's fine that he goes in and gets knocked first. They feel like his rate with being knocked versus knocking other players is fine, and they don't really want to buff him too much. So basically they're just giving him some heals per second outside of fighting, help him get his HP back up. So they said before his passive heal rate was very slow, requiring up to 200 seconds to full heal your health bar. Now it's only 100 seconds. Obviously, the math is easy there. If it took 200 seconds at 0.5 heals per second to go from 1 to full, it's obviously going to take half that time if you times it by 2. So 100 seconds to get to full, which is big, especially when you consider like how frequently the rounds change, how many minutes are in a round normally. So anyway, Watson, parameter security. Increased damage per touch from 10 to 15. Watson is the anti-Octane, not super powerful individually, not picked very often at all below plat, but an absolute must-have for competitive squads. We're also happy that with the niche, we figured it would be safe to give her a little extra power in her best case. People running into her fences. We're aiming for this to bring up her power and attractiveness at lower levels of play, especially since we don't see a lot of players running into Watson fences in high skill matches. This is just an issue with Watson's fences in general. They're very telegraphed. They're not at all like caustic barrels where you can hide them behind like walls and doors. You pretty much will always see a Watson fence. The only time you're ever realistically going to run through a Watson fence is if you're pushing, or you've really screwed up and now the storm is to your back and you're taking storm damage and you need to get in. But even then, unless they're camping the fences and gatekeeping you, you typically will have time to shoot the bar out at the bottom and just go and not take any damage. So I think this is more just a issue with Watson's kit as a whole, rather than, buffing it. They could buff this to 99 damage and it just wouldn't be viable because people will find a way to just dispose of the fences. Like I said, the buff that she needs is that her fences actually take a lot of damage to break or something like that, and then maybe we could talk about this being a good L1. Other than that, it's just kind of a fancy light show that tells the opponent, hey, I've been through here. Loba, Black Market. Ammo taken no longer counts toward Black Market's maximum. You can scoop up all the ammo in range. We're taking another swing at making Loba add the ultimate legend to bring to solve all your team's loot needs. We have heard your feedback that you want improvements to her tactical as well, and while that's certainly not off the table, our data suggests that her encounter win rate, how many knocks compared to how many times she's knocked down across all matches, is quite healthy, though like we talked about with Octane. It's her trio's win rate that's worryingly low. Make no mistake, this is a major swing at making Black Market powerful. I'm fine with this change. I did think it was a little bit too much to, you know, choose between ammo, attachments, or a gun, or shields, or, you know, healing, any of that stuff, this makes it feel a little bit better. You can get the ammo you need now, so you don't have to worry about gunfights. I will say there's probably going to be an interesting strategy where you black market and you literally take everything and you just keep replacing the ammo in your inventory and dumping it on the ground in front of your black market, so that way there's no ammo in the zone. I could see people trying that just to see if it's a good strategy. I mean, with 3 people there, realistically, you can probably do it pretty fast, and, you know, however many slots, and then you just pick up whatever ammo you do want, and then you just leave. I could see that being a fun way to troll people, honestly. I'm glad they're looking at Loba's black market, because, like I said, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't. It's hard to say. Like, there's something about it that just felt bad about, you know, having to choose, like I said, between ammo and guns and attachments and healing. At least now the 3 options you have to choose from, healing, guns, and attachments, they actually mean something now, and you don't have to worry about getting the ammo with the sniper rifle that you stole. Rampart. Sheila now takes 1.25 seconds to fully spin up, down from 2 seconds. That's kind of a pretty big buff. Amped Wall now takes 3 seconds to fully bed, down from 4. In patch 6.1, we made a small change to how long it takes Sheila to tighten her bullet spread. This didn't meaningfully increase her win rate. The other half of that change is in this patch. We do not want to change Rampart away from being a legend that requires setup, but we do want to make it faster to set up. Amped Wall should remain a mostly out-of-combat setup ability rather than a reactive ability, and Sheila should remain an aerial denial tool rather than a murder machine. But, like all things, these balance points exist on a spectrum. And with this patch, we're moving them slightly closer to reactive / murder machine territory. God, she has so many problems. Apex Legends is a game where most of the time, it's just going to be reactionary fighting, realistically. You're not going to have time to set up. That's why Caustic is so hard to play, because he requires your team to camp in a building forever. Same with Watson to a degree. It requires you to camp. And in most cases, that's just not going to happen in Apex. With the ring constantly moving, you have to not only be correct on where the ring positioning is when you drop, otherwise you're going to fall behind on being able to do area denial. I feel like they could make it a reactionary tool and it wouldn't be that bad, not to mention that a lot of the finishing zones are out in the open, which does no favor for Rampart. It would be different if the ring was finishing by buildings where you could actually set up inside of a building downstairs, close the doors, do your setup, and then wait for people to come in and actually do area denial. Right now, a lot of them, especially in World's End, end in like the middle of nowhere. It's very rare that you don't end in the middle of nowhere where there's a lot of open space to shoot at people. That goes for both sides. Usually there's not really a building, it's just, or if there is, it's like the silos or something in World's Edge, or it doesn't work very well. I wouldn't be opposed to even knocking this down to 2 seconds just to make her feel better. As for Sheila, I think Sheila is going to need a personal amp field for it to even be viable. I don't think that would be too big of a buff. I don't think reducing the kill time, if you don't want it to be a killing machine, you could easily leave it at 2 seconds and then put like a mini shield or a mini, whatever in front of it that recharges over time so you can hop off of it. The shield recharges if the enemy isn't constantly shooting the gun and trying to break it. And then you can hop back on and go. I think that would be perfectly fine, and you only make the shield in the front, like a small little box in the front that protects you from front fire, so you can still be sniped in the back if somebody, hears you firing the gun and they want a third party, they can shoot you in the back. I think that would be the way I would balance Rampart. I think that would be a better balance than what they've currently got going on here with the amp wall. I just don't like the change. Pathfinder. Pathfinder continues to be an overachiever in terms of win rate. The good news is that his grapple change in 6.1 didn't move his win rate by much. It went up by 1% total. Yay, Pathfinder. We're doing 2 things in this patch. We're adjusting his hitboxes and we're putting in tuning for grappling hook that will firmly move it into buff territory. More context below. Hitbox. Pathfinder has a tall but extremely skinny hitbox. A lot of his model isn't actually shootable, and particularly his arms and legs do not represent a lot of shootable area either. Here is a before and after comparison of Pathfinder's hitbox. So for Pathfinder, when I typically fight a Pathfinder, I aim for this, the center of mass. There's literally no point in aiming for this because you're never going to hit it. I'm having trouble really telling how much of a change this really is. I mean, they look pretty similar to me, honestly, in terms of hitboxes, so I don't really understand. I guess maybe his hands have a bit more of a hitbox than what they do up here. Like the fingers don't have a hitbox, whereas down here they kind of do now. I don't. Yeah, I guess it's more for the fingers. The toes kind of look the same. They don't want to make this stuff back here too hittable, I guess. This is the big problem, is people aim up here thinking this is the head, and it's not. It's the shoulder joints that project the grapple. As you can see, there's still a lot of negative space. Hold on, before we get into this, I like how they're nerfing Pathfinder, or they're touching on Pathfinder's hitbox, but they refuse to touch on Wraith's hitbox, and Wraith is, I think, arguably a better legend just because of her smaller hitbox than what Pathfinder is. I can deal with Pathfinder going vertical with the changes they made to him, where it's like 5 to 20 second cooldown on grapple, usually if you're playing correctly. I can deal with that. It's not as frustrating as, you know, shooting Wraith up close or just not dying. As you can see, there is still a lot of negative space around his arms and legs. We're hoping that by making it a little easier to hit Pathfinder, we can still see, or we can bring his win rate under control to the point where we can put meaningful power into his kit. Because the question is sure to come up, we are not yet removing low profile from Pathfinder with this change, even with those increased hitboxes. Pathfinder will still be considerably harder to hit than most legends in the game. I've never had too much of an issue with Pathfinder. If this change does make a meaningful difference in terms of his win rate, he will drop low profile, but we really didn't want to take it off of him and only have to put it on next patch, you know, when his win rate spiked. So they're being cautious here. They're keeping low profile on him. We're making a number of changes to Grappling Hook as well, and in 6.1 we shipped a very conservative version of this change. Now that we know that this didn't meaningfully affect his win rate, or anecdotally how frustrating it is to fight him, we're shipping the much more aggressive version of this change list. We want to also make it clear that players should not be punished for chain Grappling Hook perfectly into other moving mechanics. So basically what they're doing is, Pathfinder no longer needs to be on the ground for Grappling Hook to be considered finish. This was huge, because what would happen is with the current 6.1 changes, you could, yes, do like a 10-second cooldown or whatever grapple, but if you slid after landing, it would still consider the, you know, Pathfinder grapple as active, so it would cause your grapple to go to the max unless you jump to stop your momentum to come to 0, and then your Grappling Hook would go on cooldown. So it kind of punished you for being able to, you know, grapple yourself, use that momentum, and slide. I'm glad to see that they're kind of getting rid of that a little bit here. The speed to which Pathfinder needs to drop for us to consider Grappling Hook finish was increased from 300 to 500 units a second. Again, that's a big difference. The maximum cooldown grapple can be set to was lowered to 30 from 35 seconds. The maximum amount of travel time before a new cooldown is set is now 5 seconds, rather than being uncapped. This means that effectively you can never incur more than a 35-second cooldown. I like that. I think that's pretty good. So, what is it, 5 seconds of movement? No. Hold on, the maximum grapple can be set to was lowered to 30 from 35. The maximum amount of travel time before a new cooldown is set is now 5 seconds, rather than being uncapped. I'm not sure right now what that means. Like, I literally just gone over most of the patch notes for this game. If you guys can let me know down below what this specific one is referring to, help me better understand it, I would appreciate it. Maybe help somebody else down below better understand it. From what it sounds like, it seems like a new cooldown is set every 5 seconds, so that means it checks every 5 seconds to see if you're still moving, and then you get a 5-second penalty for that. I don't know. That's probably not right. The amount of distance you can travel before you hit maximum cooldown was roughly doubled. So that's pretty big. That's pretty big. Like I said, you don't get punished as hard for grapple sliding, and that's the important thing. Weapon metal, yes. We're talking about metal weapons. Weapon meta. Supply drop. R99 out of the supply drop. The R99 will be turning to the normal loot pool this season, so be prepared for nothing but volts and R99s, ladies and gentlemen, because that is going to be the meta. I am calling it now. With the same stats it had before it went into the supply drop at the start of Season 6, so that means that the damage is 11 instead of 12. And then you see the ammo 20, 22, 24, 27. The Prowler is going into the supply drop, and I'm not too sure why the Prowler is going into the supply drop. This seems really weird to me. I would have actually bolted the Volt before I do the Prowler. Typically, we've seen problem guns get put into the care packages. The Peacekeeper was one of them, and it still is a legendary gun that's in there. The R99 got put in there. I'm trying to think if there was another gun before those. The Devotion got shoved in there at one point because it was a problem gun for them to balance due to the turbocharger being like insanely strong. So it's usually the guns that do pretty well that get shoved into supply drops as, hey, if you guys can find this, it's pretty much an auto win gun. The Prowler, I've never heard somebody complain about the Prowler being that strong. Yes, if you find the select fire, it's on par pretty well with the R99. It's not an R99, but it is pretty close. Honestly, I feel like the alternator still needs some type of buff to make it relevant, but that's just me. Or they need to bring down the power of the other SMGs, like the Volt and the R99, but that's a topic for a different day. The Prowler is replacing the R99 supply drop. Despite the select fire hop-up being removed from the loot pool this season, the Prowler will still have the ability to change between 5-round and full auto. The magazine size is 35, so basically like a heavy mag, and then the reserve ammo is 175, so you'll have a total of 210 shots, I believe, before you have to dump it somewhere. Fully kitted weapons. The fully kitted weapons are changing. They removed the Devotion, the Mastiff, the Triple Take, the Flatline, and the Volt, and the new full kitted weapons for the season are the Wingman, the Sentinel, the Havoc, the G7, and the Alternator. I'm a fan of the Alternator because personally I really do like the Alternator. Like I said earlier, I wish it got a bit more love. The G7, depending on what site they give it, could be pretty good as well. Havoc should be pretty good. I believe the Havoc is getting a change down below, which we'll take a look at. The Sentinel, again, a big fan of, is getting changed as well. And the Wingman is... They're adding a new hop-up, which we'll again talk about down below. So maybe the Wingman won't be as bad. Hemlock, increasing horizontal recoil of the first 3 shots slightly to the right. First burst when in burst mode. So horizontal recoil of the first 3 shots slightly to the right. So that means that it's going to pull right and vertical. So you're going to have to go kind of diagonally to the left in order to not pull off the target. Increasing magnitude in later stages of the pattern. So that means as you're hitting that second and third shot, the recoil is going to be that much harder to control. Reducing recoil multiplier in single fire mode to help compensate for additional recoil in pattern. Recoil should mostly be increased in burst mode rather than single fire mode. So basically to compensate for all you people who like to use the Hemlock in single fire, this change shouldn't affect you at all, is what they're basically saying. They're trying to make it as minuscule as possible for single fire while trying to tone down that burst Hemlock. Reducing headshot multiplier from 2 to 1.75. So that means that your headshots are no longer going to deal 44, they're going to deal 39 against a character with no helmet. While we're happy to see the Hemlock getting more attention with the recent buffs, we think it's a little too strong in Season 6. The effective range of the burst mode felt a bit too far, and the spike damage capabilities of a full headshot burst were too strong in high play. So what would that be? 44, 88, 120... That'd be 132, right? Pretty sure it's 132. Let me check here. 44 times 3, yeah, 132. And now it's like what? 40, we'll just round up, 40, 80, 120, so about 12 to, I think it's 117, so it's like, what, 3 or 13, 14 damage off now? So you may have to hit him again to kill him. Havoc, updated recoil pattern, kicks up, then right, then left, then up again. So basically it makes a circle, essentially, except for it never comes down. So basically, if you're going to use the Havoc, just know that you're going to go up vertically, and then you're going to go to the right a little bit, so you need to kind of bring it back left, and then when the left vertical or the left recoil pattern kicks in, you kind of got to go right. So it's a little bit of a mini game for sure. Basically, this is because people were complaining that the new recoil pattern was just too chaotic and they couldn't control it. L-Star. L-Star has a new recoil pattern that kicks horizontally at first and then settles into a relatively consistent upward recoil. Players who feather the trigger will be able to keep the L-Star in the good position or good portion of the recoil pattern. So basically what that means is that the recoil pattern doesn't reset right away when you stop firing. That if you do it correctly and you feather correctly, you can actually keep it in the second part of the recoil pattern where it just consistently goes upward. L-Star venting time after letting go of the trigger has been reduced from 0.4 to 0.15. So that's pretty good. So it doesn't need as much time to vent. L-Star will now reduce the heat faster when not overheated. 1.15 from 99% to 99.9% to 0% charge if not overheated. Still 2.45 if overheated. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I had to cough. We're covering a lot of ground here. My voice is a little bit strained at the moment. The L-Star had some limitations that caused it to feel worse than we'd like it to. The recoil pattern shake back and forth, which was difficult to control reliably. Additionally, firing for short bursts and then releasing the trigger repeatedly or feathering felt somewhat clunky due to the long vent time after firing and the slow heat reduction. So we are reducing those pain points to improve the visibility or the viability and feel of feathering the trigger, and adjusting the recoil pattern to reward players who can effectively control the L-Star's heat. Pretty good. Good buff to the L-Star. Sentinel. Energized Sentinel now has a pure damage increase instead of bonus damage versus shields. Energized Sentinel base damage 70 to 88. So basically, from what I'm gathering here, if you shoot somebody who doesn't have shields, you could actually deal 88 to a body shot. I think it's still gonna be strong versus shields, where the first shot if they're running red armor is gonna strip them of the 125. But now when you hit them, it'll deal 88 instead. The change in itself doesn't change the time to kill all that much unless your teammates are shooting at them. Because realistically, if you hit somebody with a body shot with the Sentinel, let's say, after hitting the shield, you'll deal 70, which leaves them with 30 HP. Not a lot of things can kill somebody at sniper range from that far away, for 30 HP. There are some things like, a couple R301 rounds with damage fall off and all that. 88, I guess, leaves them with 12 HP, so that makes them a little bit more one-shot than 30. Obviously, it's an extra 18. So we'll have to see how this affects them. The Sentinel is still a bit weak. We think a good place to improve it is the Energize ability. It seems a bit too situational and only beneficial and only being a benefit if the opponent has less than 70 shields. So we are changing the Energize from a Disruptor anti-shield effect to an amp damage boost effect. Wait. To improve its Energize ability, it's a bit too situational, only being a benefit if the opponent has less than 70 shields. That doesn't make any sense because the Energized effect rips the shields off the target altogether. I think what they mean to say is if the opponent has less than 70 health left. That has to be what they mean, is less than 70 health. So anyway, I like to change to the Sentinel. I think that's pretty good. I'm hoping that I'm reading this correctly and it still does its bonus damage versus shield, so it can still strip a full shield. And then anything after that to the body is 88. What I'm hoping the buff is, and it's not just flat 88. That would be way too awkward. Triple take fire rate reduced from 1.3 to 1.2. The triple take. Actually, the other thing that I forgot to mention up here that I just realized, if you hit a headshot with this, you will kill people with white body armor now. Not quite blue body armor, because it's what, 160, or sorry, it's 174 is what it deals. So it's not quite enough to kill somebody with blue body armor, who I think clocks in at 175. So that is something to keep in note as well. Obviously, you're probably just going to remove the blue body armor anyway, but I'm hoping that the damage punches through on a headshot. I don't know. This is going to be an interesting change. I need to play around with this to see how this works. There's so many variables here. Like, if a target has shields and you hit him in the head anyway, does that damage actually still come into effect for like the 170 and overkill on the shields? Or does it just strip the shields off? Because that's what it used to do with a headshot with disruptor rounds, is that it would just strip the shield and it didn't even matter if you hit him in the head, you wouldn't get bonus damage. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Triple take fire rate 1.3 to 1.2. The triple take is still performing a bit too well after the most recent nerf, so we are reducing the fire rate back to what it was before patch 6.0. We'll be watching in the future to see just how the integrated choke, sniper ammo increase, and new popularity affect the weapon's performance. So they're basically reworking, or not reworking, but nerfing it back to how it was before 6.0. You still get your integrated choke, which is the big thing. Hop-ups. Quick draw holster hop-up. This new hop-up attaches to the RE45 and Wingman. When equipped, the gun becomes quicker to raise and lower, takes less time to ADS, and has reduced hipfire spread, particularly when not actively moving. This should open up new opportunities to use the two weapons, especially in close quarters combat. So, I never really had a complaint with the RE45 and the Wingman's like raise speed. We'll have to see just how much this affects those particular guns. Like I said, I've never really had a problem with it, but the hipfire thing I do think is very cool. We'll have to see just how accurate it is when you're standing still. I'll be doing some testing tonight for sure once the patch drops at 11, so if you guys want to come hang out with me, I'll be playing Apex Legends Season 7. It'll be around 11 p.m. Eastern, probably a little bit closer to 11:30 midnight, depending on when the patch actually drops. So if you guys want to come hang out with me there, we can test out some of this stuff. The select fire receiver hop-up will be removed from the loot pool to make room. Game meta changes. What other gun used the select fire? The Havoc used the select fire, but it really wasn't that viable. As well as the G7. I just realized, I believe, no, that was double tap. Never mind, it's not select fire. Never mind, it was just the Prowler. Prowler and Havoc. Game meta changes. Evil armor requirements increased. So basically, level 0 now requires 100 from 50, so an extra 50. Level 1 to level 2 now requires 150 from 125, so an extra 25. Level 2 to 3 now requires 250. I'm sorry, 300 from 250. An extra 50 as well, or yeah. Level 3 to 4 is 750 damage from 500, so you need an extra 250 damage in order to get to level 4, which is Predator armor. And this is to prevent players from getting Red Evo armor and having everybody run Red Evo at the end of a game. You actually have to earn it now. So it's kind of a nerf to Crypto, because Crypto would just use ultimate accelerants and then EMP and just get free damage on everybody who's fighting. And usually that would add up pretty quick to Red Evo armor. So kind of a nerf to Crypto. Ring damage reduced. 2% per tick, the same. Ring 2, 3% per tick, down from 5. So let me just tell you how big of a deal this is. If you guys ever watched me play Apex, you know a lot of the time I'll just grab a crap ton of healing. And like I talked about with changes above, the shield batteries I guess don't really matter from the Replicator. It's more the medkits that matter, as long as they're still in there. What you can do is you can actually like stock up on a bunch of medkits, and you can actually live in the storm forever, essentially. Basically, Ring 3 will now tick for Ring 2's damage. That's a big difference. You can easily live in the storm on Ring 2 damage right now, currently at 5%. I do it all the time. Like, I'll grab both banners, run out into the storm, and I'll just go chill out in the storm until the other team backs up with like 20 or 30 seconds left, and then I'll come back in and, you know, go get my team up and then move on. This is a big difference. This is the Ring 2 changes should allow players enough time to pop a syringe if they're picked up in Ring 2. So that means if you go down to Ring 2, you can actually revive somebody, and they should have enough time to pop a syringe and, you know, get recovered. So this is a big difference, like I said. This was 10%, so this was double what it was before. Ring 4 is now 10%, so Ring 3, it kind of was possible to stay out in the storm. You had to time it correctly. You basically had to start healing, I think, at, what is it, like 45%, 40% HP with a medkit if you're going to get the medkit off before you die. So it's still possible. You're going to spend a lot of time healing, but if you have the items, you can still stay out in the storm for quite a while in Ring 4 and 5. Funny little side story. There was once a game where I actually spent time out in the ring crafting with replicators, making medkits, and just living off medkits until I knew the other team had left. Funny little side story there. So for all you people who like to ride the ring, this is a gigantic change. As you can tell, I'm very excited about this. Ring 6, 15 per tick from 25, so an extra 10% drop here. I wouldn't advise staying out in the storm. It may be possible on Ring 6 as well. Ring 6 may be the break point where it may be a little bit harder to stay out there if you're using medkits to survive. Ring 7, 15 per tick from 25, so that's a lot of damage that you're losing from the storm, especially for teams that have their back to the storm and are trapped. This gives them a little bit more survivability and a little bit more time to play and, you know, get back in the circle. Maybe, like, let's say the final 3 squads, and you know where one of the teams are and their like back is to the ring. If they have the healing, they can actually probably sit out in the circle now and heal up like with a couple medkits, and then if you get third-partied waiting for them because your back's to the other team, then they cannot recover and run in and clean up and win the game. So don't sleep on these ring changes. These ring changes are real. I am honestly shocked that they're doing this, because the whole ring changes initially, where the damage went like through up. I'm sorry, like spiked up is what I meant to say, but anyway, where they spiked up is because people were living out in, you know, the storm for too long. Like Lifeline could actually heal, used to be able to heal out in the storm and just sit there forever, and was unaffected by the storm. So very interesting in Season 7, they're allowing players to just chill in the storm. Bug fixes audio. We've made some advancements in Footsteps audio playing more reliably. We have more work being done that will continue to roll out as it gets completed. Yeah, Yeah, seems important, you know, when you don't hear the freaking Caustic walk up on you. You just turn around and there's Caustic just standing there. Like, hey, I didn't hear you coming at all, bud. You left your footsteps somewhere else, huh? Pathfinder fixed an issue with ziplines going through platforms when deployed from underneath. Never seen this problem, though I haven't really played Pathfinder too much since they reworked his grapple because it was bugging out back when I did play. To where you had like half your screen be zipline. Wraith fixed an issue with priming a grenade canceling Wraith's ultimate. Wouldn't know about that. Fixed an issue with getting stuck in double jump after using a jump pad. I'm really curious what this particular one looks like. So would you like hit the pad, jump or whatever, and then you do your double jump and then you just freeze in the air? That'd be pretty interesting. I don't know if I'd be upset about that as much as I would just laugh at that, honestly. Fixed an issue with Octane being able to use healing items while in the zipline. Yeah, that definitely seems pretty good. Crypto fixed an issue with his drone being able to drop items from Crypto's inventory. Your drone's like spotting somebody and you just leave it there and all of a sudden like they're getting ammo dropped on them or grenades dropped on them. Everybody's confused. Fixed an issue with his drone not being able to fit through certain windows. Fixed an issue with his drone marking friendly Mirage decoys as enemies. Yeah, that's probably a really good fix. This probably popped up from the last one where it wasn't marking Mirage at all. So it kind of went to the other side of the needle, where it was just too bad. Revenant fixed an issue with Revenant getting pushed into Geo with his totem when his totem is deployed in tight spaces. I wonder if people were using this to clip out of the map. Usually when you get pushed into Geo like this, you can actually clip outside the map. Depends on if there's a floor underneath, though. If there's no floor, you just fall infinitely and you just can't die unless you're in the storm. I do remember, I think when the game first came out, that there were spots where you could actually clip through and you just fall infinitely and then the storm would kill you. Rampart. Fixed an issue with Rampart not being able to place amp wall while jumping. Yeah, that was kind of annoying. I ran into this issue a couple times. I thought it was pretty dumb that I couldn't plant a wall while I was trying to like jump and dodge bullets. Not to say it's a good idea either, but still pretty frustrating. Fixed an issue with Sheila teleporting when placed on a hatch in World's Edge staging. I'm kind of curious what that would look like. Like, would the machine gun just teleport randomly into the map, or would it just drop down? Anyway, those are the patch notes for Apex Legends Season 7. It will be dropping, like I said, later on tonight. 8 p.m. for you Pacific Coast players, 11 p.m. for you East Coast players, and sometime in between for all you other United States players in between. Like I said, I think the big change here is probably like for sure it's going to be the airdrop clarity. So you're going to be able to tell where enemy teams are based on the airdrop coming in. If it's blue, that means it's a lifeline. If it's another color, you probably don't have to worry about it too much. The Olympus map is pretty exciting, as well as Horizon. Can't wait to try out her Black Hole Ultimate to see just how much synergy it has with some of the other ults that I talked about earlier. Really curious to see how long it lasts as well. Bangalore is a big winner here. Her ult goes to 6 seconds from 8 for the explosions, which, again, don't sleep on. You now have less time to get out of the missile field before you just blow up and die. Caustic, again, I do want to see him with Horizon. I think that having him with Horizon may offset some of his weaknesses. Losing the distorted view when you're in the gas does suck, but at the same time, they're still slowed. So that's still a plus. Maybe they could just buff the slow on it a little bit, and that would offset, you know, them not being able to see the disorient effect. Mirage looks pretty good. 45 health on decoys. Just don't run behind them. Octane, just a minor quality of life change here, where now he can actually see benefit from his passive and regen a decent portion of his HP within a certain amount of time. Watson doesn't really fix Watson's issues. I guess now if you just happen to run into a fence, you take 5 more damage. You kind of deserve it if you run into her fence. Loba, we'll see how this one changes, and if there's a tactic where you just scoop up all the ammo in the area. I think that could be something that people or players will try to do to try to prevent other players, especially in the end circle, from being able to loot ammo if they need it. Rampart doesn't fix Rampart's problems. Pathfinder, he's basically getting the full buff, and that's really it, honestly. And get ready for the double SMG Volt R99 meta coming. So with that, guys, I'm gonna head out of here. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, found it informative, or agreed with any of my opinions on some of the meta changes that are coming, be sure to hit like the video. It helps other people find the video. I say this every video. I won't ask you to subscribe because I do cover a multitude of games, so some of those games may not be up your alley, and I don't want to flood anybody's inbox with videos that they may not otherwise enjoy. With that out of the way, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. I will see you guys maybe tonight if you guys check out the video and want to come hang out. I'll be playing, like I said, at 11 p.m. or 11:30 when I download the patch. I'll link that down below. If you guys want to play some games, we can play some games together. With that, I'm out, guys. Take it easy. Stay safe out there. Peace.